write novels based partly on folklore, it helps to keep references handy. I'm not done collecting reference sources yet, not by a long shot. But in today's video, I'd like to share some of the books I've been using with you. Hi there, I'm Linda Maxey, the author of the Library Lynn Guides to Superlative Nonfiction and the author of an upcoming paranormal women's fiction novel. My newest project is set in the North Carolina Blue Ridge Mountains, which is part of the Appalachian mountain chain. The novel is a fantasy based partly on local and world folklore, and to write it, I've needed to do a fair amount of research, which is great because I love to research. I've already discussed some of the fairy lore I've consulted for this project, and today I'm going to share the plant lore and bird lore books that I've been using. I'm hoping that you can share even more suggestions with me in the comments. First, let's look at the plant books. I have two. The first is Ruth Benny's Plant Lore and Legend, The Wisdom and Wonder of Plants and Flowers Revealed. I have the Dover edition, and the book was first published in 2006. The copy that I have was reprinted in 2016. Ruth Benny has a degree in natural sciences from Cambridge University in the UK and has worked as an editor for decades. In this small 141-page book with a useful index, she covers all sorts of information on flowers, trees, and other plants from grass to Christmas evergreens. The book does not indicate who's responsible for the illustrations, so I assume that they were created by the author, and it is a beautiful book. There is a small cautionary note near the beginning that says, "Under no account are any of the recipes in this book to be tried at home." And since some of them involve poisonous plants and very old, possibly harmful folk remedies, that's good advice. Here's an example. This is a Romany recipe for gout. You need an ounce of woundwort, an ounce of powdered rhubarb root, an ounce of willow bark. You boil them together in 3 pints of water for 15 minutes, strain, take 2 tablespoons night and morning. That might be just fine, but I'm not sure I want to try it. But I didn't buy this book for the health advice. I bought it for the plant lore. And while I haven't directly used a lot of the information in the book, I've mostly used it to choose symbolic plant names for characters and places. Benny gives historical accounts of remedies these plants have been used for, and these include remedies for physical and emotional problems. She mixes scientific knowledge of the plants with proverbs related to them, mentions certain plants and how they're used in literature and in myth, the meanings of plant symbology, witches' plants, reading tea leaves, and the use of plants in modern holiday celebrations. She covers all sorts of things here. It's fun to just dive into when you have a minute. It's a delightful book, and I'll probably keep it forever. And I think the cover is really lovely as well. The next plant lore book I purchased is Southern Folk Medicine by Phyllis Light. I won't dive into that one too deeply. I discussed it in more detail in my 10 favorite nonfiction reads from 2023. I'll link that video below. Light was raised by a folk healing family in the southern Appalachian Mountains. I bought the book for the plant lore, but Light doesn't provide as much information specifically on using plants as she does on her experiences learning to practice folk medicine, the history of folk medicine, and theories that underpin its use. I included it in my top 10 favorite nonfiction books of 2023 for a reason. The book was fascinating to me. I recognized some of her remedies from my own Appalachian family background. If you're interested in that sort of thing, I can't recommend this book enough. I ordered other books to help me learn about plant lore that I won't cover. Most of them spent a lot of time providing recipes and advice on seeking out plants in the wild, and that's not really what I was looking for. Now on to bird lore. While the book that I'm writing focuses mainly on fairy lore, birds play a huge part in the stories. And I don't know why this is. I think I've mentioned before that I'm terrified of birds since I was a child. At around age 5, I walked out of my bedroom one night and my parents were watching Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds on television. I stood there rooted to the spot in terror. And then my mother saw me and took me off to bed. It was too late. The damage was done. And then one spring afternoon, around the time I was 8 or 9, I was scraping paint off a wooden chair under my grandmother's apple tree when a mockingbird flew down at my face and all around my head. I assumed that it thought I was too close to its nest, and that just tore it for me. I've been done with birds ever since. But I've also had some mysterious things happen that involve birds that I don't really want to share. And I've learned that I'm not alone in having things like this happen. So I'm not sure exactly why birds figure so predominantly in my story. It just worked out that way. They kept popping up as the story developed in my head. And since they were going to be there anyway, I figured I might as well learn more about them. I've been watching YouTube videos on owls and looking up information on robins, and I'm also in a folklore group on Facebook. A few weeks ago, someone posted a picture of this book, saying that it was an excellent resource on the topic. I ordered it that very moment. It's The Secret Language of Birds, a treasury of myths, folklore, and inspirational true stories by Adele Nozidar. The Harper Element book was published in 2006, and I'm so glad I ordered it. I haven't made it all the way through this book yet, although I intend to, but I do have it as a reference source. Nozidar lives in Wales and began the book with her inspiration for writing it, which included a wild merlin that would come by and visit her occasionally. She credits that bird with helping her recover from a debilitating operation. She also talks about the dangers that birds are exposed to in modern life from herbicides, pesticides, and other threats, and she talks about the ancient and traditional spiritual meanings of birds. She delves into birds from the Bible and other literature and folklore from all over the planet. She shares poems and stories about them, divination using birds, the connection of birds to astrological signs. I didn't know there was one, but now I do. I asked my husband what he thought, what bird might represent my sign. He said he immediately thought of the hummingbird, and the hummingbird is what represents my sign. She also talks about shamanism and mythological birds. Of course, she also provides scientific information about birds that we have on the planet today. Of particular use to me are the use of information on bird lore and symbolism from the Native Americans. Let's just take her treatment of birds for one example. She opens with the poem The Owl by Charles Baudelaire, and then provides a discussion of facts and general information. For instance, there are 137 species of owls. Owls have acute hearing, they're nocturnal, and they're largely solitary. Then she dives into the symbols and superstitions that surround them. She spends time specifically on how they were regarded by the ancient Greeks, Romans, Native Americans, Africans, Celts, Chinese, Indians, Japanese, and other places all over the world where owl lore has a presence. Weather lore and owl medicine are also included. What a great resource this is. The book is also accompanied by line illustrations by Finley Cohen. The book is going to add depth to my novel, and at the very least, it's fun to learn about. So that's it for me today. Do you have any books on bird lore or plant lore that you would recommend I use? Or have you read novels that incorporated either one that you really enjoyed? Leave a comment below for me if you do. And until next time, happy reading.